Cocytus moved his foot slightly forward to close the distance between them, a really short distance that was. Considering the difference in their strength, it would not be strange for Cocytus to easily close the gap between them and hack straight down with his adachi. So why did he do such a thing? The answer was simple: he wished to grant Brain a death that was befitting of a warrior. Brain's appreciation for Cocytus as a warrior deepened once more as he assumed the stance of true nail clipper. Not yet. Not in range. The magical buffs granted to Brain by his potions meant that he was much stronger than he was when he faced Shaltir. Even so, the human named Brain Ungloss could not hope to reach the domain of the monsters like Cocytus. There was nothing he could do about it. After all, it was impossible for an ant to prevail against a dragon. A fact that was hard to swallow, but he had to nonetheless. Still, he did not wish to lose. What should he do? It would be good to reduce the overwhelming gap in strength between them, even if by a little, but how should he go about accomplishing that? I am a warrior, so I must do as a warrior would. Ability boost. Brain activated a martial art. He had expended all his reserves for true nail clipper. There should not have been anything left for other martial arts. However, Brain's eyes began to fill with blood, and blood began to stream down his nostrils. His capillaries had just burst. A shing sound rang out as if to signify a transition. His physical capabilities were boosted to the next level. He activated another martial art. His physical capabilities were boosted once more. But not yet. He was still unable to do it. So what should he do? There was only one answer. Brain activated yet another martial art. Greater ability boost. Brain Ungloss had yet again achieved something impossible. He did not know this himself. The true nature of his talent was an increase in his focus capacity. Only with this, and the addition of his higher levels, was he able to activate the martial arts required by true nail clipper. But even so, Brain had his limits. He could not use any more martial arts than that, a limit imposed upon him by the world. But in that moment, Brain broke the rules of this world once more. A second miracle of this kind. The first was when he cut Shaltir's nail. The second was made in this moment. The consequence of breaking the rules was that his body began to deteriorate. His body probably couldn't last for even one more minute. However, to those who were strong, a minute was a long time. Cocytus entered into Brain's range. The god-slaying Emperor Blade in Japan. Brain pulled out his own katana to receive the attack from Cocytus' adachi. And then, the sound of blood and flesh being rended could be heard. After swinging the god-slaying Emperor Blade, Cocytus shook off the blood and fat from the katana and returned it to its space. He pulled his halberd from the ground and looked down at the corpse of the man he had just slain. He was a fine warrior. Cocytus was unscathed. The blade did not manage to reach him, yet his skills as a warrior was commendable. I have never heard of such an excellent warrior. It was such a shame that he had to kill him. If it was possible, he wanted to save his life and have him become loyal to his master. He could have easily broken his opponent's sword, tanked his hit, or broke all four of his limbs, but that is not the way of a warrior. Cocytus had already sensed it when he saw this man standing on his own from afar. He knew it all the better when he stood face to face with him. This was a warrior who had made his resolve. Cocytus could not dishonor such a man. He knew exactly how beneficial it would be to bring him under their rule, but still killed him. It would not be wrong to say that he had betrayed Nazark. Still, he wished to converse with him through the clash of their blades. If warrior Take Mikazuchi were here, he would probably praise Cocytus for his decision. By levels, he is probably around 40. However, he felt that other than that single strike, there was not much else power in him. Perhaps it was something like Cocytus' VDR jaw strike, or perhaps he had used special abilities to strengthen himself. He was insignificant in comparison to Cocytus, but in this world's terms he was strong. Cocytus picked up the katana. Brain dropped. I will be taking this. Among the weapons in Cocytus' possession, this was exceptionally weak, something that was practically useless to him. Perhaps it would be better to lay this sword by his side to mark his grave, but Cocytus decided to take the sword. He was not too keen to leave his body as it is. You all freeze this man. After he gave his command to the Frost Virgins, the body of the man named Brain began to slowly freeze over. Just as Cocytus was about to step over Brain, he stopped himself again. He looked towards the castle behind Brain. Cocytus turned his head around while deep in thought. He turned right and walked into a path that was narrower than the one before. He walked down the path until he emerged onto the main street again, after which he took another right turn. He walked along while confirming the castle's position, taking every right turn detour that he saw, which brought him back to the main street. Cocytus looked towards his right. Brain's remains were now quite a distance away. Cocytus then silently walked towards his left, towards the castle. Hello, don't get in my way. Aura called out to the cowering soldiers on top of the city walls. She made use of the imperfections along the wall to make her way up in a single breath. While the soldiers at the top wanted to use their spears to attack, what they witnessed next were inhuman movements. She jumped over the soldiers, spun around midair, and landed perfectly on the other side of the battlements. Her hands formed into a V-shaped gesture for the lined-up soldiers to see. The eyes pointed towards Or, his appearance was that of a child's, were all filled with fear. Having seen her unusually light body in action, surely none of them still believed her to be a normal child. Plus, there was also the matter of the magical beast down below, waiting for her. Or ignored the humans and pulled out a piece of paper from the pocket by her waist casually. The soldiers advanced towards Or step by step to surround her. Their spears were pointed towards her, yet she continued to ignore them. Okay, everybody. I'll say this again. Do not get in my way. Or unrolled the paper to compare the capital in front of her with what was drawn on the map. If all of the landmarks matched up, it would be much easier to read. She easily found the Magician's Guild, her first intended destination. Or, now satisfied, turned around to see the soldiers surrounding her. The tips of a few spears were positioned right in front of her eyes at a distance, where a slight movement would cause her to touch them. Say, even if I was the only one to have climbed up here, was it really a smart idea to focus your attention on me? You know they'll come up here as well, right? The soldiers looked at each other and sprung like springs to the outer edge of the walls, but it was already too late. Or's magical beasts climbed up the wall one after the other. Their surroundings echoed with the pitiful wails of other soldiers. Or had greater combat prowess than them, and while it was true that appearances could be deceiving, this was still too much to bear for them. The soldiers who had completely lost their will to fight began to stampede over each other to get out of her vicinity first. There still were soldiers who held the idea that this position had to be defended, but with so many of their compatriots scurrying away, it was hard for them to maintain their morale. The city walls were thick, so the battlements were quite wide, but the fear-driven soldiers still pushed and shoved each other in their attempts to run away. If there was any semblance of order to their route, they would have probably made it out faster. Those pushing each other at the front made for an absolutely chaotic getaway. Although it would be trivial for the magical beasts to chase after them and exterminate them all, they were not interested in doing that at all. They had not received orders from their master yet, which was why they were letting them go. That was true for all of the magical beasts except one. A level 71 magical beast, the largest one she had brought along for the occasion, an Iris Tyrannus basileus. Its posture matches that of the Tyrannosaurus rex, but it also has dorsal fins at the back. As its name suggested, it shined with vibrant light. Or was not too sure on the specifics, but she did remember that her master had said its original design had to be based off of the king of the monsters. The Iris Tyrannus basileus roared. A roar loud enough to make the ground clatter. That was not to assert dominance or an expression of its own emotions. It was a type of special ability, petrifying bellow. If one had a similar level to it or had resistances against mental effects, it would just be an annoying roar. The routing soldiers were about to demonstrate what would happen if you satisfied neither of said conditions. Fear twisted their expressions to the extreme as soldiers began to fall. Fear induced instant death. It did not do this because the death of the scurrying humans brought it joy, but simply because it had found the inconvenience of having to constantly shift its sight line around to be annoying. The soldiers died for that kind of a reason. But it was not as though the Iris Tyrannus basileus came out of this unscathed. The cost of such a power was great. Surrounding the Iris Tyrannus basileus were 5 of the 6 remaining beasts, the level 78 Fenrir, the level 77 Hound of the Wild Hunt, the level 76 Kirin, the level 76 Amphisbaena, and the level 74 Basilisk. The Kirin started off by bucking it, followed by the Hound of the Wild Hunt trampling on it. The other magical beasts joined in one after the other to kick the Iris Tyrannus basileus. "You too damn loud" was probably what they were trying to convey. While combat prowess had nothing to do with this, it was still getting bullied by magical beasts with higher levels than itself. The Iris Tyrannus basileus tried to seek sympathy from Or by whimpering, which only caused the other magical beasts to intensify their attacks. If their previous attacks were comparable to that of the seniors of a club disciplining their junior, what was happening now was more like a beating brought on by its own faults. As a side note, the only monster that did not participate in the beatings was the level 58 avaricious frog named Gagarper. It was a magical beast that looked like something straight out of somebody's nightmare, like a giant frog but wrong. In its mouth were rows upon rows of dirty yellow teeth, and its eyes looked like that of a lecherous middle-aged man. That's it. Guys, I'm not angry, stop bullying Iris-chan right now. Aura crossed her arms and looked at the magical beasts with half an eye open. The magical beasts began to cry. Alright, I'm not angry at you either. After she said that, the magical beasts, other than the Iris Tyrannus basileus, gathered around Or and used their giant bodies to nuzzle against hers. Mayu. Or let out an adorable cry. While her physical strength was no less than any of theirs, getting pushed around by their giant bodies still made her let out that sound. Hey hey. Gimsum, space. In front of Or, who was clapping her hands together, the magical beasts began to line up. That said, their bodies were huge, so lining up single file was quite difficult. Each of them found a spot to stand in and switch to uptight expressions. The playful attitudes they had when they rubbed against Or was nowhere to be seen. Now, we'll begin invading into the capital to take over a few of those buildings. It's just sad that a few of you children might not be able to shine is all. The largest of the bunch, the Iris Tyrannus Basilius, began to look indifferent. Then I'll give you a special mission. Walk along the city walls and squish any humans you see. Boo. The Iris Tyrannus Basilius's roar shook the air around them, its voice gradually trailing. It lowered its head and cautiously looked towards the other magical beasts and Or. Great. Now then, everyone, the operation has begun. Quick.